And you know, this panel is called How to Use Blockchain to Empower Communities, which is kind of interesting because the whole point of this technology is to empower communities. And we forget that. We think the whole point is to raise money. So how many of you are raising an ICO right now, raising money through an ICO? One? That's it? Everybody else is here for coffee and education? All right. So before us, we had a panel and they talked about how to raise money. And if you look at the white papers, there's this much text about the community, and the word community is dropped all the time, but very little definition. And there's a lot of talk about the token distribution and about the use of proceeds. And most people forget to talk about how this is going to really empower a community, in my opinion. The other big problem that I see is after the money is raised and the community was hit with lots of news, almost on a daily or hourly basis, the management is so tired of the roadshow and of explaining what they're going to do with this money that they stop communicating. Which is why when they get listed on exchanges, when they stop communicating, that's when you see the price go down a lot. And there was a great chart that somebody put up earlier of all the ICOs that raised money and got listed, and how 80% of them were in the red, meaning the value of the token was lower than the price of the ICO, which is really, really bad for investors. So that's why I think this panel is very important to talk about how somebody who grew up in Canada, lives in Paris, an Israeli guy. We have Bo here from China, and we have Máté from Hungary. We have people from all over the world who have advised, invested, and started their own companies, or were founders, co-founders of ICOs, or companies that are raising money through ICOs, and how important it was to talk about and then actually implement that money to empower the community, because otherwise it's just a lot of hot smoke, and that's how investors then run away. So I'm going to start with Philippe, and if you could just tell us a few words about yourself, and then we'll go through some examples of companies that you invested in. You invested about $2 million so far, and how they're empowering communities.
Hi, thanks a lot to the organizers for a great event. My name is Phil Dardier. I'm Canadian. I'm based in Paris. Canadian means my American friends call us English-speaking Mexicans, so it's kind of fun. I love Mexican. Mexican food is better than American food. I can go on and on for hours about that. I have a traditional career in investment banking, one of the major investment banks, and in 2008, I thought I had to do my own thing. I'm now with a small investment bank, which is Paris-based, which specializes in tech, and we have conceptually two strong assumptions. The first one is that tech for us is European. By European, we mean EU, plus Israel, plus Turkey, plus Ukraine and Russia, because we think it's now become a European sector, and the laws and the regulations are the same. Second thing we do is we focus on funding for companies, and we'll probably get to the ICOs later, which means equity, debt, and ICOs. For us, ICOs are project finance, and they will lead funding in the startup world in the next 5 years, not by 1 to 2, but by 90 to 1.
I'm sure most of you heard so much Hebrew being spoken in this hotel, right? So we have a representative here from the Israeli community.
Good afternoon. So we're beyond borders. Yes, we're based in Israel. I'm from Miami. My background is from construction to real estate. That's what I love to do, and that's what I did since the age of 16 when I dropped out of high school to do construction. About 2 years ago, when I turned vegan, I realized that there's more to life than just doing construction, making money, and things like that, and I shifted my focus on how can I really empower and help the vegan community worldwide, and that's when we decided to co-found with my two buddies in Israel. We founded VeganNation, and the mission is to empower our community, empower businesses that are looking to empower their communities, and bringing this onto the blockchain is really a beautiful example of how to take technology to a community that has daily needs, that has daily challenges, and through the different blockchain applications that we're building in VeganNation, we think we're going to make veganism to be more accessible, more affordable worldwide.
Great, thank you. Bo, you come from the biggest nation that very soon will have the biggest GDP and surpass America. So tell us from your perspective, all the big companies you worked at and now doing startups, you've seen what it's like for Pfizer, a company that you used to work for, put out a product and the marketing that it takes to do that. But now with these smaller startups, there's big hype, and then what's behind it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my name is really short, so it doesn't give you lots of juice. First name is B is boy, O is ocean, so Bo. Last name is J is Jackson, I is India. So I always say that if you don't remember my name, you won't remember anyone else's name. So please remember my name. Second, China is very big. I was born in Shanghai with a population of 30 million population. I don't know what's the population in this country. Maybe it's similar. Blockchain in China is a huge phenomenon. And before last year, September 4th, Chinese government stopped the Bitcoin trading in China. Now, why is that? Because by the time the China stopped it, the China has taken about 98% of the global trading of the Bitcoin. So that is a problem for the Chinese government. So they said that we have nothing to do with this, and we're going to stop that. So I'm anticipating at some point this is going to change. So blockchain is a huge phenomenon in China for this reason, because the Chinese has missed the PC era of the development. And then they catch up on the e-commerce. So China is very big. It has the world's largest e-commerce solutions. But now coming to blockchain, every Chinese startup is thinking, we got to do something about it because it's the future. It's a new wave. So they don't want to miss it. So in China, we have something after Chinese New Year this year, around February time, created a national phenomenon, something called a 3 a.m. non-sleeping zone, which means there are many people talk about blockchain, but they want to find out who are the really passionate people. At 3 a.m., you're not sleeping. You're still talking about blockchain. We have lots of discussion forum who doesn't start until 3 a.m. It's like crazy. So the whole country is talking about it. They actually made me an expert in this. About 3 years ago, people started inviting me to talk about blockchain. I had no idea about blockchain 3 years ago. Then, I do lots of research because I'm an educator. So now I educate worldwide people about blockchain. Now, here's my few things before I finish. I believe ICO has went out of control. And in the future, we will see more and more regulation. Our moderator has rightfully pointed out that any ICO, you cannot just treat ICO as easy money. You have to have a really good idea and implementable, and that can really solve a problem. And many people treat the ICO as an IPO. Before I even have a product proven all those criteria that IPO need to have, I can go through ICO to screw people up. I'm sorry to use that word. So I think in the future, it will be those kind of projects that really are rooted in the people's life. So find a solution for it, can be really implemented. In China, we see some fake project. They go to America, go to Europe, go to this country, they listen to your business plan, and they take it, they change it, and they present to the investor. They got ICO. So that is a problem I see.
Great, thank you. Máté, you're both advising and investing in ICOs, and you get to see a lot from Eastern Europe and other parts of the world. So tell us a little bit about how you see this playing out.
Yeah, so thanks for having me here. I'm coming from Smartologic Technologies, which is a Hungarian-based, Israeli-Hungarian company. We are advising startups, blockchain startups, of course, and we are providing services for them and also invest for the most promising ones. So it's a very new situation for me from Hungary because I spent 5 years in startup marketing and business development, worked with international companies, but I always experienced that that Hungary is not the middle of the whole world, even if we think sometimes. So then I just came to this decentralized world, and now I see that that even if it's not truly decentralized, now we Eastern Europeans, Central Eastern Europeans can build networks, can build valid businesses, and have attention from the world. And that's a very new opportunity for all of us here, because as far as I see, most of us are from Eastern Europe and Central Eastern Europe. So I think when you are listening to this panel discussion, you should also consider that the world is not just about the EU anymore, or America anymore, or about China anymore, but with an ICO you can gain attention, you can gain traction or with a good product and with a good community, because I think that's one of the main focus of our panel today.
Great, thank you. So 22 years ago, when I was in college, I started using Hotmail. It was a big deal. Microsoft bought it for 400 million after only 13 months in business. And all that it did is it allowed me to not go to my director of IT office in my university and say, change my password because I forgot it. It allowed me to change my own password, right? And a bunch of other web-based features. So if you told me 22 years ago that today I would buy a flight ticket through Expedia, and it would go straight into my calendar, and then I would get an email with the invoice, and then I would get a reminder as a pop-up, and all these other features that today became the integrated solutions, I would have never dreamt of that. I would have never even conceived how to make money with that as an investor or as an entrepreneur. So today we're looking at companies like 10X, okay? We invested in 10X from TAS, and it was a very simple video. It was a guy with his girlfriend who basically she was chasing him, and it was a $2 video, and that's how he explained the product. I go to the coffee shop, I choose, from my mobile app, one of my cryptocurrencies, I use it, they give me the cup and I go home, right? So that's an infrastructure play. What are the best examples that you have seen in the companies that you invested in or advising that are today providing that infrastructure, so that way they empower the community, whatever the community may mean?
Okay, the question is a bit broad. Blockchain as a technology is more of a protocol, so it's an underlying feature. So I'll be specific. Right now we're working on 2 ICOs. One is a crypto exchange, and one is a called blockchain.io, and the other one is a it's not an ICO, it's a token. Monaco is issuing a token for its community, so it's a broader community, it's not necessarily a local community. And what they're trying to focus is on the definition of the token, and I'm not sure they're going to do an ICO. It might be airdrops, it might be the possibility to have an ongoing purchase of the token. What I think is absolutely essential in these both blockchain and ICO is, and it's been mentioned at the past roundtable, you need a community. You need a community with engagement. That's the first one. The second thing, I think you really need to have means to communicate to your community and be in sync with your community, because some great projects have communities and yet they don't seem to adapt to the demand or respond to a need. And there's a difference between both, because I'll quote Steve Jobs, who said, "You have to give people what they need, not what they want." There's a difference between both. A need and want is something different. That's one of the difficulties in ICOs today. What we're finding is that if you don't have a community, you don't have a real technology, it's very, very difficult. And if it's not open source, it's also extremely difficult. Right now, what I find interesting in this market, and one of the predecessors in the last roundtable said the money isn't yet in blockchain. The money is definitely not yet in blockchain. The paint is not wet. Things are not moving as quickly as you want to. There's not that many investors around. Regulation is an issue. I'll comment on that shortly. I don't think regulation is the key issue, but I think it's really important to have a big community and a good synchronizing feature. One thing today which I think is really damaging crypto is not regulation, because there'll be one country in the world where you can do something. It's more the custody of the assets. Who holds the wallets and the assets, and they're secure. That's essential. And it's contradictory with the concept of blockchain, which is anonymity. But somewhere along the line, we'll have to find something along those lines. Whether you talk about Switzerland, Gibraltar, any country in the world, it doesn't really matter as long as you have a decentralized custody of the assets.
Is your exchange decentralized or centralized?
It's a decentralized exchange. They do all the tech stuff. What I think is wonderful with ICOs, and it's been touched upon just a second ago, is that it's two things for me. It's a global IPO, and it's a global marketing for a product. So no matter how smart you are, and I'm working with French people are, like everywhere, pretty smart, but translating the concept, which is French, into a globally accepted concept is difficult. But every nationality has that problem. So making it a global product is essential. And I think when you do an ICO, it was mentioned it costs more and more money, but you have to be globally accepted in a global community. And that's one of the most powerful things that's underlying everything in terms of ethos and people. And you know, you have people from everywhere here, you have great ideas from everywhere, and there's an element of trust. I think one of the strongest things in globalization will be blockchain.
Great. So the community that you're targeting, how many vegans are there in this world? So I try to be vegetarian or vegan for one day, and I forgot by the time I woke up the next day and I ate some salami, and that was the end of it. So how big is the community?
So right now the community is about 300 million people worldwide, and it covers countries that you would never imagine. There's about 15 million in Brazil. They say about 50 million in China. The Chinese government has announced that their next decade their plan is to reduce meat consumption by 50% because they won't be able to feed the amount of people they will have with the amount of meat and dairy they consume now. And then for sure in the United States and Western Europe, it's growing by 100% a year. So it's a huge global market. So people think that it's a niche market. It's true that it's niche, but it's growing by 100% a year. It's growing by 100% a year, and it's globally. And the numbers are staggering. And like you said, the #1 challenge of being vegan is sustainability of being vegan. It's hard to find a product. It's hard to stick to it. It's hard to find your support system around it. And that's what we're here to do. Our mission is to make it easier, sustainable, and accessible, and especially affordable, because for a lot of the young people, they say about 50% of the vegans are between 16 to 34. That's the age that is concerned about the pricing of their food and their products. And right now, vegan food is more expensive, and that's one of the reasons why it's hard to keep at it. And one of the things we're doing is by bringing everyone together to work as a community, we're going to make it also more affordable, and that way we believe it will be more sustainable for the long run.
So half of your white paper is about how this helps the community, basically.
I would say more than half of the white paper is about the community, the power of the community, and the benefits of the community working together. Because at the end of the day, all these ICOs, some of them are amazing ideas. And I'm not here to knock anyone. They're amazing ideas one by one. But one of the most important things about blockchain and the currency in general is what is the community behind it? Who's going to be using it on a daily basis? And by bringing this community of vegans together, they're the most active community, they're the most activist, and they really want to make a major change in the world. And we're bringing everyone around through blockchain and the cryptocurrency.
Great, thank you. Bo, you're a motivational, inspirational TEDx speaker, so you give speeches with really nice slides. So I know it's hard for you to just talk without your slides here, but you know, you're Mr. China, at least on this panel, to this group of people. We all know it's important to translate your materials in Korean, Arabic, and Russian, and many other of the major languages, but in terms of reaching the core Chinese person who may have an understanding of how this benefits his community or her community in China, and the white paper doesn't talk about it, just talks on a global basis. Do you see that it's very, very important to not just translate, but to localize that information to that culture? So that when they invest, they actually know what they're investing in?
Absolutely. It's not just about the language. Actually, language is not the most important thing. Most of the Chinese, particularly working in blockchain industry, they speak English. It's not a problem. And you don't need to translate. If they need to figure out what you actually mean, they will find a translator inexpensively and get the job done. I think the more important is the local adaptation to adapt to what Chinese are looking for the solution. You know, for instance, I must say right now, blockchain as a technology overall still in the early stage. We still have issues related to the fundamental, you know, technology. There's a Chinese company called Krypton, perhaps you all know, are dedicated to find a solution to bridge different platform, for instance, the Bitcoin and Ethereum. And they are very successful. They raised $5 billion through the ICO. So this kind of thing, I think we need to focus on. And in terms of Chinese local taste, the Chinese companies that are doing something, I give you some example, perhaps will give you a better idea what they're looking for. For instance, they're trying to apply to many different diverse industries. For instance, for e-commerce, they're doing it for the traceability of the counterfeit products. You know, many of you perhaps know China, particularly through the Taobao Alibaba platform, they sell some counterfeit product with relatively low quality, and sometimes, you know, the branded product, they're selling it. So Alibaba and JD.com basically is Chinese Amazon, a very large company. They're using blockchain to deal with the traceability and to fight against the counterfeit. This is a small application, not very big problem they're trying to solve, but they're getting into a lot of details of that. And their companies deal with education. For instance, I'm advising a company who are deal with training. They're using blockchain as an approach to deal with the training. The way they do it is quite interesting, where instead of paying for the training fee, you actually, you know, get Bitcoin. No, wait, not the Bitcoin. You know, actually the digital currencies as an exchange, and that digital currency can grow in the value. So that means that you, as an individual who invested, you have the obligation and the incentive to really promote this particularly training company so that your value of the investment will grow itself. So it's kind of creating a community and creating a marketplace, at the same time also creating the incentive to mobilize the people who are trained to be your salesperson as well. So it's doing fantastically well.
Kind of like multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
But one level.
Right. There are many, for instance, food delivery. There are many hospital management. There are many areas wherever the data are being recorded, they're trying to find a way to implement that. So China welcomes a lot of experts from this room. If you are in this, you want to talk to China, talk to me. And I have so many investors behind me wanted and ready to invest. And they are looking for very good projects that are real, not just to try to raise the money, and also try to solve a social and economical problems for that. And you need a local adaptation. You need a partner in China. You need someone who can really, understand the market. It's very difficult for me to summarize, to say what kind of thing they're actually looking for. But once the investor look at it, it will be very clear, to deal with it.
So 3 weeks ago, I was having a conference in Tokyo, and the day before my conference started, there was big news all over Cointelegraph that a Chinese conference organizer was shut down. And that was the main title. So I was now scared to go to Tokyo, thinking maybe they will shut me down and put me in jail for a day. But really, at the bottom of the article, they finally talked about how some of the organizers took tokens and they did some shady deals with some good people who then went and told on them to the government people. So, how hard is it now to raise money? Is it everybody talking hush-hush back like in old communism area in this part of the world where you were afraid to say certain things so the government may hear? Or is it people talk about it? Because I got on stage in Seoul and Tokyo and I said ICO and everybody talked about ICOs and nothing happened to us. But I'm a little worried to go to China. If somebody complain about something, I may not even be at fault, and boom, they shut down the conference.
No. It's China is a very free country. If you talk about communism, now I always say communism in China took power in 1949. So Communist Party has far less influence to the people's daily life than the Western capitalism. As a matter of fact, China now is, in my humble opinion, more capitalistic than the socialistic. And China have a very high Gini coefficient, as high as 0.5, which is second in the world. So our market economy has been practiced to greatest extent, more than Europeans. You talk about France, I live in France right now. So you talk about France, they are very socialistic. But China is you can say a lot of things in China without getting yourself into trouble.
My point is, if you were advising and raising money for a company right now, and you set up a roadshow, Shanghai, Beijing, Nanjing, whatever, would these meetings be classified as confidential, not just of their nature, or would it?
No, you don't need to be confidential. There's a lot of,
So you could have a meeting in the lobby of the hotel talking about ICOs?
Well, as long as you don't you need to be, for instance, you don't do it in the lobby because that creates a public nuisance. Okay. You do it in like conference room here, that's not a problem, right? What government fear about is any movement could threaten the legitimacy of the government as a powerful party. If you challenge, Chinese Communist Party, there's a problem. But if you're purely talking about business ICO, it's not a problem. So,
like Monaco is looking at having their own currency. China is the farthest away from ever having a cryptocurrency.
You think it's further away from a cryptocurrency?
Well, no, he said he's working on an ICO where Monaco is going to have its own cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So people could use it in the stores and traveling there and stuff like that. So China is the furthest away on a graph from ever having anything to do with crypto.
I think it's a misconception. And I personally believe within a few months, Chinese central bank is going to start to issue the digital currency. Let me tell you why. First, the Chinese central bank has more digital currency related patent than any other country, than any other companies in the world. They have 68 of them related to digital currency. Why they would put the money to research, and they're hiring a lot of talent in this area publicly. So that means that they're doing something to prepare to issuance of the digital currency. And second, after Second World War, the whole world has been dominated with American presence, military-wide, economic-wide, and more importantly is the US dollar. The American fight with US dollar. Now, I'm an American citizen by now, okay, so I can tell a lot. Donald Trump, every time he threw missile and do everything, is all about US dollar. So Chinese digital currency will become a weapon against the US dollar. And so I think in the future, Chinese government is going to issue the digital currency, and it's going to allow the digital currency to be issued, not just by central bank, but also by other providers.
Great, thank you. Máté, how many companies are you guys packaging right now in your portfolio?
So we have different level of involvement in our projects, but in general we have 8-10 projects at a time. And for example, now we have Young here, which is I'm very so I can't wait to see their presentation about their launch. And also, which I just had thoughts about VeganNation and how Isaac said that it's not a niche anymore. Then I just been reminded to our project, which is we have a project which is in real estate, and we just want to make flat sharing more easy, which is, I'm sure, is a big issue for most of big city citizens. Let's say for London or Budapest, we have experience with, and now we are building a blockchain-based solution for this. Because when we can make flat sharing more easy, then you can empower communities to live together. Then this will decrease the rental prices because we eliminate the middleman. And also, which is very interesting, that in flat sharing, the biggest issues are security and trust issues. And when you think about the nature of blockchain, then this is an area when blockchain gives answer for most of these issues. So I'm very excited about this project too, but we also have a student marketplace project out of this. So it's a separate project which can give the power back to university students. So when I'm thinking about blockchain, I'm not thinking about IT, but how this can empower communities and make things more efficient, because even with the real estate project or with this student economy project, these things are solving problems that I faced and the next generation shouldn't. So for me, that's the vision in blockchain, and I think that that's the one that you should also take in your mind when think about blockchain.
And how far do you think they are from really impacting these various communities, whether it's music or file sharing or education? Is it 1, 2, 3 years from now? What do you think? Because there's going to be competition in every field.
So when I'm representing a company, I should say tomorrow, you know, because I have to sell these projects. But in reality, I think, so we in Smartologic Technologies always say that from day one, we should build an MVP and build a solution. So it's not just sharing an idea and raising money anymore. So I think these projects can have immediate impact very soon, but to make it
takes time to build the technology.
Yeah. But for example, let's think about Airbnb or ride sharing, because the whole sharing economy was nowhere 5 years ago. So I'm so excited that we can build new institutions on the blockchain, because at the moment I have a feeling that the internet is just an online institution for what we have before offline. And with the blockchain, we can rethink these institutions and rethink this on a decentralized way. And that's a big challenge, but also a big opportunity for all of us.
Cool, thank you. I get pitched, I think, once every other day, if not every day, about some crypto exchange, a new crypto exchange. Centralized, decentralized, whatever. So how is yours different, and how is it going to impact those traders within that community using blockchain.io?
No, I think, first of all, blockchain.io is a project I advise. I think the point isn't for me to pitch just the company, but the thing is, today in a decentralized world, when you invest in tokens, you're investing in a new coin, a token or a coin. And the remark that was made about the US dollar is quite accurate earlier, is that the US dollar has been a dominant currency. For me, the US dollar and the euro are stable coins in a whole array of currencies. Ultimately, a token when it's issued is not money. It's when it's liquid and it's tradable that it becomes a form of money or a resource. Money's a technology, it's neutral. It's not good or bad, it's just there. And the expression of money has gone away from currency to cryptocurrency and tokens. So why am I saying this? I think you need many different exchanges. You need decentralized exchange. You need hundreds of exchanges to make sure there is liquidity and you don't have a monopoly situation, which you have traditionally on some of the traditional exchanges for securities. One thing I'd like to get back to is that as we get into this world of cryptos, the concept of market is essential. A market, whether you look at a fish market somewhere or you look at, a truffle market in southern France or an exchange, the first thing you do is you get people to meet and they have rules and they exchange information. And then subsequently you trade whatever, a token and so on. It's really essential to know that the concept of price discovery is important and having liquid tokens is essential. If it's not liquid and you don't have the freedom to go from stable coins to Bitcoin and all that, it's useless. So it's absolutely essential to have decentralized exchanges. And then we get into this whole really boring stuff of custody, not one custodian, but multiple custodians. And that's the power ultimately of these whole networks.
What's the formula? I have to own X amount of tokens to be able to trade? Or my volume depends on how many tokens I have? Or?
This morning somebody was telling me, in the US, as much, I'm Canadian, so we know Americans very well. I really adore that country. It's a very democratic country with a strong legal system. But they did this Jobs Act with crowdfunding, and I co-founded the European Crowdfunding Network, and we had the SEC come over. I think you might like the story. So we go to this head lawyer at the SEC, and I say, why haven't you guys launched your crowdfunding laws in the US? And he turns around to me and he says, Phil, we have very diverging views within the commission. Then he walked away. So basically, they have to get their head around that thing. And for me, a token to get to that point, when it's issued, is worth nothing. It's not a security, it's not a utility. Once it's used, it becomes a utility. And then if it has monetary value and you can exchange it, then it becomes basically a security. But it's meaning, actually, over the course of a life of a token, it's going to have multifacets. And basically, when you look at ICO, it's a reward-based crowdfunding. You get a token, and then you want to be able to make it liquid. And it has present services, future services. A lady this morning said, be very careful how you structure your token, because you're going to live with the community, and this thing is going to tap your resources. And you have a promise, which is what you won't want to disappoint people with, and you have the life of the token. But liquidity in markets is essential, and with this blockchain.io exchange, what we're doing is we're going to list tokens. It's going to be a style of listing, and you go there, you don't go there, but it has to be an open world.
Okay, well, I believe that every token is a security token because people are selling that made-up thing to raise money and then go build something with it. But that's legalese, nor here nor there.
Sorry, I don't necessarily agree with you. I think it's a reward initially. You've got nothing at first. And then if it has life and it starts trading, the more it's used, the more the value of it goes up. And then it becomes a security. And they can change again. If it goes back down, it becomes a utility. So it's a combination of rights and all that. So it's not that simple. It has multiple forms and lives to it. So putting it as a security, I think, is in the wake of this 2008 crisis. If you ask anybody here what a KYC is, he's going to tell you it's, ID card, where did my money come from and all that. That's not a KYC. KYC is know your customer. That's 50% of the KYC. The rest is, do you know your customer? Do you know your community? So it's a bit more complex than that.
Okay, thank you. 50 minutes flew by really fast. It's a really tough topic to talk today after only 3 years since ICOs started invading our daily vocabulary about how this is really impacting today communities. We can only talk about how it will, in my opinion, because we're still in that infrastructure development stage. So with that, these were the panelists that the conference organizers invited here to talk a little bit about what they're doing and the projects they're advising. And now we have to vacate this stage for the next panel. So thank you all for listening, and please come talk to us because our Q&A will probably be more meaningful on a one-to-one basis than everybody listening to the big question, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.